is ill today, and as such, I'll be chairing the meeting. We're going to begin with a moment of reflection, and to introduce the moment of reflection, Councillor Wilkinson has a few comments that she would like to make about some recently departed elected representatives from the Canada area. So, Councillor Wilkinson, once you're done, we'll simply move into the moment of silence.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. The two former political representatives from Canada recently died. The Honourable Paul Dick, who was a long-time resident of Canada, served as Member of Parliament for Lanark-Carleton for 21 years, from 1972 to 1993. During that time, he was Associate Minister of National Defence, Minister of Supply and Services, and Minister of Public Works, with responsibility for Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. He served his community, constituency, and country with passion and dedication. Eddie Vance, who is World War II veteran, was elected to the March Township Council in 1969, the same time as my first election to March Township. He served on the council for 7 years. He is well known and appreciated in the community as a school bus driver, owner of Eddie's Service Centre, and a proud member of the Canada Legion, 410 wing of the Air Force Association and the Orange Lodge, and also is a good friend of mine. And I would just like to remember these both who served their community well.
Thank you very much. And in addition, we also remember Catholic School Board Trustee Kathy Ablett, who passed away after 20 years serving on the school board. Thank you very much. It's now my pleasure to ask Councillor McKenney to introduce our musical guests for the day.
Thank you. It's always a good council when your folks are here to do the anthem. And this morning we're fortunate to have the grades 1 and 2 from Centennial Public School who will be performing today's national anthem. I also just want to recognize the teachers who have accompanied them here today. Stephanie Kawamoto and Shelley Endenberg are here, as well as a volunteer, a parent volunteer. And we also have in the audience with us today Erica Bronavan, our local school board trustee, oh, there she is, whose daughter is Shania is part of the choir. So welcome, Erica. Centennial, if you don't know it, it's located right in the heart of Somerset Ward. The teaching and learning at Centennial are characterized by child-centered approach, and they provide opportunity for all students to develop their abilities to their full potential, which you will see shortly as they belt out the national anthem. This school is often referred to as being a special place and serves as a key anchor in our community, where the well-being of students and a clear sense of belonging provide the foundation to enable the students to become well-rounded and engaged young citizens with great voices. So now please join me in providing a warm welcome to the students from Centennial.
With glory hearts
It's now my honor to invite Ms. Marianne Varley to the podium for this City Councillor's City Builder Award presentation. J'invite maintenant Marianne Varley.
It's an honor to invite Marianne Varley to the podium for this Council City Builder Award presentation.
It's about you.
I hope so.
Okay. I'm also pleased to welcome Beacon Hill Cedarville Councillor Tim Tierney to join us for the presentation today. I want to extend a warm welcome to the family, friends, and associates of Marianne who are here with us as well. This award recognizes people who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place today and for the future through outstanding volunteerism or exemplary action. Marianne Varley is recognized for her community leadership in visual arts and cultural development. Ms. Varley has volunteered in a variety of leadership positions with Arts East, a not-for-profit organization that helps its members develop their abilities and interests in the visual arts. Arts East fosters the growth of visual arts in Ottawa and the surrounding area. Marianne's contributions are highly commended by the Art East Board of Directors and Management Team and by the many artists she motivates and inspires. She has served as the President and Vice President of the organization and now helps guide and mentor Art East board members. In support of the organization's community outreach, Marianne has led the Grow with Art speaker series since 2009, and she supports other outreach activities and art exhibitions. Marianne is a dedicated volunteer and continues to contribute time to many of the organization's exhibitions and activities. A lifelong artist that generously and selflessly gives her time, Marianne is also an active member of the Ottawa Art Association. She manages the Old Stick Cooperative Studio and continues to be a very busy artist and grandmother. Her experience and insight and her abundance of energy and enthusiasm inspires others and brings the arts community closer together. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Marianne for her many contributions to the entire community. J'aimerais saisir cette occasion.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Marianne for her many contributions to the entire community.
You with the Mayor's City Builder Award. We're going to go over here and take a little picture. Okay. Just tip it down. There you go. Good. Say a few words.
I would.
Go.
It's not a grocery list. Deputy Mayor Taylor and Councillor Tierney, council members, city administrators, family, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Mayor Watson and the City of Ottawa for the support of the arts throughout the city. Council and administrators work hard on many portfolios, be it housing or transportation, health and safety, infrastructure of all kinds. So it's wonderful that they also make culture and the arts a part of that vital work. The new Ottawa Art Gallery and facilities like the Schenkman Arts Centre are evidence of the support they give to the citizens of this city. I have a few special thank yous this morning. First, I am thankful that as an artist, I have such a supportive family. Ross and my children, grandchildren, my sisters, thank you for giving me the time to paint and create. I would also like to thank my mentors along the way. I can't name all of you, but only a few. Especially Kathy Alboim, who guided me through forming parent advisory councils at our neighborhood schools. Fran Langstaff, who mentored me at the Old Stick Cooperative Studio. And from my many friends and colleagues at Art East, Liz, Pare, Maureen, Danielle, I could keep going. I've learned a lot from our many art adventures. I have many to thank, including Carmen Defoe, Ted Johnson, Bernard Poirier, whose wisdom helped with the incorporation of Art East. I am very appreciative of the Board of Directors, Josie DeMeo, Cheryl Mattice, Laurie Organ, Claire Ousley, Lindy Nataraja, and especially Lynn Elsford, for nominating for this special award. I have been enriched by your friendship and your kindness. Volunteering is the backup labor for any vibrant community, and I am richer from my small contribution to the arts and culture of the City of Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Conseiller Manette.
Present.
Councillor Middick. Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El-Shantiri. Councillor Kadri.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirelli.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Si.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Ici.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko.
Present.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Present.
Conseiller Play.
Present.
Councillor Derouse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Kakish.
Present.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson. You have a quorum, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 9th, 2018. Carried. Declarations of interest, including those originally arising from prior meetings. We've received none. Communications as received. Received. Responses to inquiries. OCC 0118, transit-oriented affordable housing. We have a request from Councillors Leeper and McKenney to suspend the rules to lift this communication for discussion. And we would add it to the agenda. On suspension, carried. Adding to the agenda, carried. Petitions as received. Regrets, we've received regrets from Councillor El-Shantiri, Councillor Middick, and Mayor Watson for today's meeting. Motion to introduce reports, Councillor Nussbaum and Deans, please.
That Community and Protective Services Committee Report 33, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 20, Planning Committee Report 63, Transit Commission Report 18 and 18A, in camera, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for items subject to the Planning Act explanation requirements at the City Council meeting of May 9th, 2018 be received and considered, and that the petition with respect to the on-street parking impacts of the Harmer Avenue Pedestrian Bridge Reconstruction Project detour listed on the agenda be received.
Much. Carried. Committee reports, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 33, item number 1, Ottawa Paramedic Service 2017 Annual Report. Is this received? Thank you. Item number 2, updates to the closed circuit television CCTV policy. Is carried. Thank you. Item number 3, commemorative naming proposal, WO Wilhemina Walker Park. The committee recommendation is that Council approve the proposal to name the future park located at 305 Lysander Place, WO Wilhemina Park. And I know Councillor Nussbaum has a motion to make a small amendment. Councillor Nussbaum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, since the meeting of the Committee and Protective Services, we've learned from the family of Wilhemina Walker that their preference is to have a slight change of how we identify her. So we would call her Willie Walker Park. That's how she was known, and the full name of WO in this case is not warrant officer, but wing officer, and so we would change the name to Wing Officer Willa Walker. And just quickly, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for those who don't know, Wilhemina Walker was the commander of the Women's Division of the Royal Canadian Air Force during the Second World War, and this park is going to be located in the former Rockcliffe Air Base, so it's a very appropriate naming in this case.
Great. Well, it's certainly fitting. On the amendment and the motion, carried? Thank you. Environment and Climate Protection Report 20, item number 4.
Hold, please.
Motion, plastic waste.
Hold.
Sorry, hold. Item number 5 from the Planning Report Committee 63, Urban Design Guidelines and Zoning Provisions for High-Rise Buildings. Carried. Item number 6, zoning amendment, small-scale industrial uses in commercial zones. This went through both ARAC and planning. Is it carried on the report as amended by the Planning Committee? Carried. Thank you. Item number 7, zoning amendment, live music and performance venues. Hold. Item number 8, collective bargaining mandate for QP 5500, in camera, not to be reported out. Council will now consider item 8 on the agenda, the Transit Commission Confidential Report 18A, pertaining to collective bargaining mandate for negotiations with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, QP Local 5500. Transit Commission considered this matter in camera at its meeting of May 16, 2018, and has referred a confidential direction to Council for its consideration. With Council's concurrence, we may carry this direction to staff set out in the confidential report from the Transit Commission without going in camera. Is that carried? Carried. Thank you very much. For the benefit of those present, City Council approved and has approved the direction staff contained within Transit Commission Confidential Report 18A regarding the collective bargaining mandate for negotiations with the Canadian Union of Public Employees, QP Local 5500. Since the content of this report pertains to the city's labor relations and bargaining approach and the background on negotiations, the release of which could prejudice the city's legal and bargaining position in respect of these labor negotiations, the material falls within the exceptions contemplated by subsections 13(1)D and 13(1)F of City Council's procedure bylaw, and is also exempt from disclosure pursuant to the subsections 6(1)B and 52(3) of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy and Protection Act. As such, the matter will not be reported out. On the bulk consent agenda, we've received no request to lift anything. On the bulk consent agenda as presented, carried. Great. Thank you. And the first item then is back to the inquiry that was held on transit-oriented affordable housing. And Councillors Leeper and McKenney, you requested it be hold. So Councillor Leeper, you beat Councillor McKenney to the button. Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, or Chair, and I'll keep this very brief. Thank you very much, first of all, to the staff who put in a pretty comprehensive reply to my inquiry on affordable housing near transit. In the context of Councillor McKenney's inquiry with respect to creating a task force that would look at developing a strategy, when I look at the response to my inquiry, I still see a number of silos, individual programs that apply to affordable housing. How do you see, or what do you need from us to create an actual priority on affordable housing such that every department that touches affordable housing near transit is aware and working toward making affordable housing near transit an actual priority? Because there are a lot of silos in what I'm looking at.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm pleased to report that the first meeting of the Interdepartmental Steering Committee that was struck as a result of Councillor McKenney's motion is next week. So we will have 5 different departments represented in the discussion and trying to break this issue down. I can report, and my colleagues can supplement this, that based on Councillor Leeper's inquiry, we've demonstrated that there are good land prospects in close proximity to transit stations with opportunities for transit support, affordable housing in transit-oriented development areas. The zoning regime that we have today is generally quite permissive for this, so it's not a zoning problem. The issue is not so much the availability of land as the availability of funds for bricks and mortar construction, which is a much more substantial issue and may go beyond the city's own ability to address. But we are going to be doing work as a committee to bring forward recommendations to Council.
And would those recommendations, if it's determined that we need to have council policy formed in order that all those different silos prioritize transit affordable housing, is that within the scope of your task force's work?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think all options are on the table for us to bring forward recommendations to Council. My colleagues from the other departments will have much to say about implementation strategies. As I said, land availability is not likely the question. It is likely a funding issue for bricks and mortar components of construction.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Councillor McKenney.
Thank you very much. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you. I just want to pick up on Councillor Leeper's questioning. Again, the response to his inquiry was very substantive and provides us with a very clear framework and a very clear path forward. But I do note that, when we talk about our official plan, that it only encourages the production of affordable housing and new residential development. And I wonder if for example, it does call for something like 25% of new rental housing to be affordable up to the 30th percentile, et cetera. And do you know, have we met any of those targets over the last 2 terms?
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I needed to consult with staff on the response. So although the targets are there and we have made some progress, I think it's fair to say we haven't hit the 25% mark, but that is, as Council had previously provided support to us to examine the issue of an inclusionary zoning as a tool, it will be on our work plan for 2019 to do a background study to go into this in further detail and gather more data.
And the committee that will be meeting, I believe that you've got all of the right departments together, but I just want to make sure that we recognize that as a city, our contribution really is land that we own and air rights that we have access to. Other levels of government have got the funding, and our social housing providers are able to actually build the affordable housing. And I just want to ensure that we will be looking seriously at our own land that we now own. Other levels of government as well. I think Gladstone Lands is a perfect example of what can be done right at a station, and those air rights. So I just want to confirm that that's something that the interdepartmental working group will be considering.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, that's certainly what we'll be looking at.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fleury, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to build on some of those questions and comments. I do think that there is a gap where planning and the review team really looks at live application and certainly works through some of the provincial federal funding agreements relating to housing, and that ties into to Janice's team. I'd like to hear from you on so is this task force going to be formed? And if so, who are the players that will be involved? Because in my mind, it's about keeping city land and leveraging that in mixed use opportunities, in opportunities where we do offer public housing, but also affordable rentals for families and so on. So I'd love to see a wide range of partners at that table so that we can have the planning arm and the housing branch really work together with the different providers and keeping that public space. We want to see development along the stations, no question, but I guess there's a sense from all of us here that we're losing the tools that we have to ensure affordability, and that's the key concern. So maybe you could share with us how this working group will be established and who will be at that table.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the five departments who are participating in the interdepartmental working group as a result of Councillor McKenney's motion are our own department, Planning, Infrastructure and Economic Development. Community and Social Services, the housing branch from that group will be participating. Transportation Services, the Corporate Real Estate Office under Corporate Services, and Recreation, Facilities and Cultural Services are all invited to participate. What we see right now, this is the first meeting of the group, we see the group getting together and looking at the opportunities on city land and bringing forward some ideas how we could leverage that. I think the question Councillor McKenney raised about other publicly owned land is also something we can consider, particularly if land swaps or other sorts of arrangements might be possible. We know the Gladstone Station project is a really good example of that. So at this stage of the game, I see it as an internal exercise, but at such point as we have something to work with, we do see consultation with the various stakeholder groups who are in the business of building in that space.
Okay, and I can understand that these are an internal group for now, but some of our external partners would be involved at the appropriate time, I imagine?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, our own department recently hosted a session in partnership with a number of those groups, and we have regular ongoing dialogue and look forward to talking to them as we go forward. But the first step to address the motion and the direction to staff is to assess our own situation, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, and how would the department feel today if an application came near future LRT routes? Would we withhold, what is the policy position for us to ensure that affordability is kept and that we can leverage the city's goals as part of that? I know we want to get there, but what's in place today so that we don't lose opportunities?
So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I appreciate where the councillor's question's coming. We're asking two separate questions here. As it relates to city-owned land, the city has considerable leverage in terms of the council will have to decide how that land is used. On privately owned land, there are development requirements that we must consider in the official plan, and we generally look at a range and mix of housing types within any given large development in order to satisfy the affordable housing requirements. But we do look forward to the potential to use the new inclusionary zoning tool in the areas of the city where the market is not already providing affordable housing options.
And that inclusionary zoning tool is in place today, or we're still awaiting?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the province has enacted the regulation, so it is something we can take use of.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I'm sorry, Mr. Willis, I didn't hear.
The regulation is in effect.
Is in effect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillors Kenny, Leeper, and Fleury for speaking to this morning. I think our city staff team, particularly the working group, have heard quite conclusively from members of council that there's a big appetite to certainly consider all options when we're looking at equitable transit-oriented development to make sure the train doesn't bypass all of us, that everybody in our community gets an opportunity to live near our new light rail system. So thank you very much. On the inquiry, is this received? Received? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Kakish.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick question with regards to the new alignment in Riverside South and what your timelines are on this with regards to that, because I'm interested in seeing potential opportunities. Would that be something we would incorporate there as well in terms of opportunities? What are your timelines with that? And I know we're still maybe a few years away with regards to that development, so does that timeline work well for us to see if there's potential opportunities for incorporating that in the suburbs as well?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, first of all, I think that it's really important that we do the background study in order to assess where our need actually is. In the research we did for the inclusionary zoning motion, which Council previously identified, many suburban areas already provide a healthy mix of affordable housing within the affordability calculation. It's not so true as we get in the center of the city, and not so true as we get around some of our TODs, future TOD sites. But should Council accept our recommendation for our work plan in 2019, that will be a matter we'll be getting into right away.
Okay, that's good to know, because I hear similar concerns, obviously, in terms of the growth and development. It's a really hot housing market now, and townhomes are close to $400,000, and a lot of people simply don't have the money to afford that, especially if you're young and just getting your first job. So any opportunities we incorporate, I think we have a unique opportunity with the new Trillium alignment now that goes further to the town center in Riverside South to look and explore those opportunities of development. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kakish. So, received? Received. Thank you very much. Before I go to our next held item, I did want to point out, Deputy Mayor Minette pointed out to me that hidden behind our treasurer over there was former regional chair and former council colleague Peter Clerk. Thank you for joining us this morning, Peter. Always great to see you back out in the council chamber. Motion number 4 from the Environment and Climate Protection Committee, plastic waste. There were several holds, I think. I'm not quite sure who held it, but let's start a list. It's Keith Eglai who held it. Okay. So, Councillor Eglai, please.
Yeah, this is more a question of clarification. I probably the chair can answer this question, or staff can jump in, and depending on the answer, I might have a suggestion for a friendly amendment. As I read the motion, when you talk about reduce the use of single-use plastics, including but not limited to, and then you go through a whole list of things, including takeout containers and cups, I'm assuming that the motion does not apply to all takeout containers and cups, and by that I mean we're not asking staff to also look at the challenge of dealing with styrofoam.
We have a mic for Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
Thank you. At this point, there isn't a preconceived conclusion on any of this. The point is that there are all sorts of single-use plastics, disposable plastics, sometimes briefly reusable ones that are in use out there, and we have been receiving, I believe rightfully so, interest from a lot of residents as to whether Ottawa was planning to ban things, whether we were planning to take more restrictive measures. We've been hearing about other cities that are doing that, and it seemed to me the wisest approach was to look at this comprehensively, not one, let's look at straws this month and bags next month. And so what I'm asking staff to do is to look at, as two parts of this motion. The second part is to look at the variety of different materials that are out there and make suggestions based on best practices as part of the waste report that's coming.
So does it include styrofoam or not? Because if it doesn't, I would like to suggest a friendly amendment that if we're looking at cups and takeout containers, we also have
It should
staff.
certainly include styrofoam, yes.
So, Madam Clerk, do we need to do something to make that happen?
This was a direction to staff, so I think it's already captured.
Yeah.
I thought it was a motion.
It says including but not limited to, so certainly in my reading, that means we've
Well,
named-
yeah, I agree.
given a few
It's the
examples.
first part where it says to reduce the use of single-use plastics, including but not limited to. You don't actually say styrofoam, so that's, so I just would like to add that in if that's.
I think we can solve that by simply making a direction to staff that they include styrofoam.
That is true. There are a lot of materials that are not mentioned because it was just giving examples, but I have no problem adding styrofoam to it.
Do staff have any objection to adding styrofoam?
Yeah.
We can. So, Mr. Wiley, you're speaking to this?
No, I was just going to, Deputy Mayor, I was just going to say, no, we don't have an objection to including styrofoam.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Councillor Fleury, you're next. Councillor Harder would like to have some staff commentary on this. I think we'll probably get to that once we start getting into more questions. So, Councillor Fleury, you're off the list. Councillor Wilkinson?
No, I'm not off the list. I was gained.
All right. Then you're on.
I'm on. Mr. Wiley, I'm favorable to the motion and to the amendment proposed by Councillor Eglai. I just want to clarify for council purposes, in 2019, your team's coming back to council with a full waste plan, is that correct?
Deputy Mayor, we'll be coming back with an Ottawa waste, a refresh of the Ottawa waste strategy.
Okay. As part of that review, obviously the authority around the residential waste is in the purview of the province. Have we had, obviously there's an election underway, but currently with the Ministry of Environment and so on, have we had discussions to broaden the scope of the waste management plan to see if we can encompass the IC&I sector and see what that would mean? Is that part of your team's review?
Deputy Mayor, no, we haven't had discussions, and we aren't planning at this point in going in that direction.
I apologize. I don't know if it's my hearing today. You're planning and heading in that direction, you were saying?
No, we're not planning at this point.
You're not planning, okay. Can you just remind council what is our mandate requirement by the province? So my understanding is that it is residential, but even it is more specific than multi-res. We've chosen to go into the multi-residential. Would that be fair to say?
Deputy Mayor, my understanding is it's curbside residential, and multi-residential is more done as a legacy service. It's uneven across the province. Many jurisdictions do not pick up multi-residential buildings.
Okay. I'd love to for us to pursue the conversation ahead of the staff work on the waste plan to see and ensure that we encompass a wide range strategy within our powers. So what's the best mechanism to engage as part of that?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, we'll have a fulsome consultation on the strategies probably starting in January or February of 2019.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the second part of Councillor Chernyshenko's report coming up from, or motion coming up from Environment captures the discussion that we want to embark on. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Just the staff, basically, I had a meeting with Marilyn Journo a few weeks ago to talk about waste and the problems of it. And one of the things she raised, and I want to know how staff are dealing with it, is the coffee pods, which are getting to be very numerous. Many of the packages say you can recycle them, but it turns out you can't. They will not go through the system that we have, so they go into the garbage. But in the meantime, people don't take the coffee out of them, and it contaminates every other thing in the recycling that we're trying to recycle and reduces the value of the recycling. I think we need to get this message out to people, because the packages say recycle, check with your municipality. And I never, Toronto's having a huge problem with these as well and is taking some action. If we can't recycle them, and people would have to know, even if you do put them in there, for heaven's sakes, take the coffee out first, because it's what goes through everything, and every single thing in what's in the other boxes all gets contaminated by it. And I didn't know that till I talked to her. So it's obviously not out in the general public. And I know they're trying to get some things to happen with those because they're so numerous now that they are causing serious problems. So I want to know is what real action are we taking, first of all, to get them out of the waste stream right now, and second of all, to work with packaging or whatever is required to see if we can get something that is either biodegradable that could go into the green bins or ban them entirely.
Deputy Mayor, currently they're not accepted in Ottawa's program. We have made at Environment Committee some time ago, we made a commitment to work with the industry towards determining whether they would be acceptable in our process. And I do know that a similar process was conducted in Toronto, and Toronto decided not to include them in the program.
But if you say they're not allowed in our program, why don't we let people know that? People don't know that. And the coffee shops that sell these should be required to post that these are not recyclable. They have to go into the regular garbage or something because there's some places that just sell pods, whole stores of them. Is there some sort of a program going to go out to try to let people know what the situation is? Because if you get, it helps the media if they announce it to people, because I don't think people know that. I know people are very hard trying to sometimes even take the coffee out because they want to recycle the little plastic cups, but they don't go through the machines evidently.
And Deputy Mayor will review the public information that we put out to the public at a regular basis and see if it's included.
And the other suggestion I'd make, and because we're just starting to review this again, is I guess I take it the review will involve asking the public for comments on that.
Absolutely, Councillor.
Yeah, and in doing that, perhaps we could use that as a way of educating more people to start using the green bins. I still know people who refuse to use them, and I think it's getting more and more important because they're increasing the percentage we have to go to. They're going to ban certain things entirely from landfills. I don't know how we're going to deal with that if people don't use their green bins. So I think it's really quite important that we rev that one up.
Deputy Mayor, part of the enhancements to the green bin program will include consultation with our public and focus groups and gearing up to a very robust public education program prior to the launch.
So are we going to move from being an optional program to a compulsory one? That's tricky, I know.
That'll be part of the strategy coming in 2019. However, the approach for the launch would be we've made it easy for residents to participate. We'll encourage them and educate them to participate, see where that gets us, and then we'll have recommendations in the strategy going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to delve into the issue of plastic bags. If we think that the federal government may, in fact, decide through their consultation that that there be a ban on plastic bags. And when we are looking at other best practices, we also agree with that. What happens then to the contract with Orga World that we just signed to put plastic bags into our green bin?
Deputy Mayor, I want to make clear that the enhancements to the green bin program were really about service delivery. It was in no way an endorsement of single-use plastic bags. The bags are available in the marketplace widely now. In fact, the promotion of the enhancements will be geared around a hierarchy of ways to put material into your green bin, and we'll certainly be working with the federal government, and I suspect one of the directions may be compostable plastic bags, where we'll certainly adopt that in the program. But even if single-use plastic bags, takeout plastic bags were banned, there are still many other types of plastic bags that are available in the market, like your cereal bag, like your milk bags, like your produce bags that could be used in the green bin. But again, just to reinforce, this was in no way an endorsement of single-use plastic bags. It was really about an in-service enhancement to kickstart the participation in the green bin program, which we all know has been lagging behind other municipalities.
Thank you for that. But just for clarity, there is a difference in the process for plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, as opposed to compostable bags. Is that not correct?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, there is, and perhaps I wasn't quite clear enough. As I said, even if single-use plastic bags were banned tomorrow, there are still many other types of plastic bags, like cereal bags, etc., that would be permitted in the program, and we would still be under contract to Orga World to provide that service.
Okay, so I'm just guessing we're not going to really count on cereal bags for our green bin, but I'll leave it at that. Just on a point of clarity, how many more years do we have left in the contract as is?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the current contract goes to 2030.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chiarelli, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Offline, we discussed the reason, the plus sides, if you want to call it, of plastics, and that if we're going to look at best practices of other municipalities, we can't just look at the practices that eliminated plastic waste. We also have to look at what is done to replace it. And so I'm aware of a number of municipalities that have had great success eliminating plastic waste, but then there are studies showing that, for instance, the use of their of reusable grocery bags has resulted in all sorts of contamination because people never wash their bags. So in this investigation, will you also be looking at how we educate the public on the alternatives if we are successful at reducing the waste?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, certainly something we would consult with our colleagues in public health about.
Okay. And I know a couple of us were on a radio program last week where the host and the co-host were shocked to hear that they actually should be washing their reusable grocery bags. So that would put them in the category of not having washed them in a year or more. So I think do we need to add anything to this to make sure that we don't just look at eliminating one problem and then causing another one, or is that going to be part of this?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, as I said, we'll certainly consult with public health and we'll use their expertise in terms of instructing the public accordingly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harder, please.
You know, it always happens at council when there's very little on it, okay? We get carried away and quite absolutely foolish, right? We start to go someplace to another planet not called Janet, where we have to add in a whole bunch of stuff and that, and we lose sight of reality. we would be well served to petition the province to have control over the IC&I waste. And then maybe we could talk about some of this stuff, okay? That's what we should be doing, and with the change in government, I think it's the perfect time to do that. There will be a change of some sorts, no matter what it is, and I think we put the pressure on. When over the years that I've been here, I've looked at the people in this city who have been impacted directly by IC&I waste, and it has been a problem for them. This, to me, is like, I don't know, fishing in one of those barrels with a bullet or something. I don't honestly know, but it seems ridiculous to me that we are actually, when we have so many other things we're not doing well. I look at the fact on the green bin, as Councillor Wilkinson said, she said, we have people that aren't using it. We have a lot of people not using it or not using it well. And we used to spend a lot of time out in the community, be very active and very vocal on why people should. And it was an election issue in the last election, if you all recall. And everyone around this table did run in that last election. And some people were able to say, not my fault, I wasn't elected before. And other people were saying, not my fault, I wasn't here when it was voted on. But the fact is that garbage is something that really matters to people, and we're not doing it well. Is this going to be something that's going to change the world or change things in Ottawa? No, it's not. Are we actually talking about having inspectors? Well, Mr. Wiley, I mean, how many staff would you have to have if they're going to go and rip open people's garbages? We have some inspectors, and they actually go out and look when we have someone has identified an issue. But really, I mean, I think that we're getting beyond the ability for common discussion about something that is basic and doing that well first before we get into all of this. I agree about the styrofoam comment, okay? You know what? Very few places you go aren't collecting styrofoam and doing something with it. And maybe there's a cost associated with that, but you know what? Keeping it out of the landfill is a huge benefit. So some other places, a lot of them, are doing something with styrofoam. I look at this and I go, seriously? I want to hear on the big stuff. We really have walked away from waste in this city since we cut our relationship with Plasco, and I'm disappointed that we haven't had a discussion prior to certainly 2019. I know personally I have gone to what's her name at the dump? Maryland Journal many times, and I said I'd like to play an active role in making sure that Barrhaven is doing what they can. Tell me, please, what the stats look like. How many of the people are participating in green bin, black bin, blue bin? I've been very vocal on what are we doing at our facilities. Are we sure that we're doing what we need to do, what we expect other people to do? You know what? We're not. We're better. We are better, but we're not. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I hope the discussion is way larger than what I see here. And I certainly don't think that this here is something that we take on until we have control over 70% of the waste in the city, which is the IC&I waste. So how do we make that happen? Who's going to take that on? And let's make it an election issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Mr. Wiley, at the last council meeting, there was, maybe you can refresh our memories, but there was discussion around the IC&I sector during the discussion around the East End waste facility, I believe. Can you refresh us a little bit as to what that was?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, as I recall, the discussion was around the Taggart-Miller landfill application, which is an IC&I, predominantly a C&D facility that is just being sited in the East End.
Okay. Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and good morning to everyone. I just want to comment on the motion that's before us and provide my 2 cents. First, to thank Councillor Chernachenko, who informed the committee about consultations that the federal government is actually leading on this matter. Members of council received a memo from Mr. Wiley yesterday. I had asked for more information about the scope of these consultations, what exactly the federal government is consulting on. And just to read two short sentences, federal government through Environment and Climate Change Canada is asking Canadians to share their ideas and suggestions on, quote, moving Canada towards zero plastic waste. The feedback received will help develop a federal, provincial, territorial approach to manage plastic waste and reduce marine litter. So it's the intent of this municipality to provide comments as part of that consultation. So I thank Councillor Chernachenko for bringing that forward. I do want to get Mr. Wiley to confirm that there will be an opportunity for at least the committee, the Environment and Climate Protection Committee, to see the city's submission before it is actually submitted to the federal government.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the plan would be to consult with the chair, the vice chair, and then certainly any other councillors, both on the Environment Committee and beyond, and then have it rise to Environment Committee.
Great, thank you for that confirmation. Secondly, the second part of the motion talks about staff investigating best practices, programs in other municipalities, but I think to address Councillor Harder's point, there doesn't talk about bringing recommendations forward. So we study a lot, we look at what others are doing, but again, we need to continue to move this municipality forward with respect to our own waste and waste diversion. Will the City of Ottawa's report, after you've done your investigation, include a list of recommendations as well of how we can make improvements?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the overall strategy will definitely have some hard and fast recommendations. There's many things that have to line up, including getting ready, discussing with the public and with council the service level for the next collection contracts, which will be coming within the next 3 years. So we are getting short on time to get all this work done, but certainly the bulk of the recommendations will be around service levels, which will inform things like how we're approaching the green bin, how we're approaching our recycling programs, et cetera.
But you're planning to bring a waste diversion report based on, I guess, amended provincial regs to committee next year. Will that include the findings of this review, or is that going to happen after?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, we're intending on wrapping it up all together,
Okay.
so it will certainly be part of this review.
Good. All right. Thanks very much. I certainly support the motion that's before us today, and I'd encourage members of council to vote in favor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brockington. Councillor Caudry, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just a couple of things. First of all, Mr. Wiley, the province is putting together or has put together a Producer Pay Responsibility Act. Will any of this be captured under that legislation?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the legislation that came out of the province, Bill 151, has originally was intended to be completed by now, but was delayed since the municipalities and the producers could not come up with an agreed upon plan. So it defaulted back to the original timelines of 2023. Certainly, I can let council know that AMO has already provided some comments as part of this consultation, which did talk a lot about producer responsibility. So it'll certainly be part of our consideration as well.
So that's my point, Mr. Wiley, that whatever the staff discovers from this motion going forward in terms of the study, that should be included in the Producer Pay Responsibility Act, in my opinion.
Correct.
The other thing, just wanted to bring to the attention of the colleagues, and I'm sure most of you are aware, the issue for our waste stream is the problem that it's been lagging us for a while. It's a three-way partnership. The packaging belongs to the federal government. The IC&I and construction waste belongs to the province in terms of responsibility. And the municipal act, or our responsibility, is the household or residential waste. So, you know, when you split that stream into three different levels of government, you're going to get this overlapping of legislation as well as overlapping of whose responsibility it is. The packaging is a federal responsibility, as just said. To me, we have to start looking at those levels of government going forward and saying, what are they doing for packaging? versus what is happening in the IC&I sector. And I agree with Councillor Harder. That is 70% of the waste stream. Any waste stream you look at it, the IC&I is the major chunk. Yet you go into some of the establishments that are around the city, yeah, it looks good in terms of their environment that they have 3 different slots for 3 different types of garbage. Question to ask from that operator is, where is that garbage ending up at the end? And that is the concern. You know, you look at this pod issue that Councillor Wilkinson was talking about, the coffee pods. The wording on it says compostable. What are they referring to? Are they referring to the material inside the pod that's compostable? Or are they talking about the pod itself? So there's confusion all the way through this stream. And that's something that we need to clarify. And this motion is just one piece of that clarification. How much can we, you know, how much should we be taking on as a municipality versus other municipalities? More so, what can be done at different levels of government? And I think that's where we need to go as a municipality. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Full circle back to Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
Well, I'm glad I have a sense of humor with me here today because, you know, sometimes at council meetings you have the simplest, most innocuous proposal that you put forward. And really what this has shown to me is that there are all sorts of issues that different councillors have which they would like to see addressed. And I haven't heard a single one that ought not to be addressed. The question is, what is in our mandate to address and what can we do meaningfully at this time? And that's really all this motion is trying to do. It's trying to say the world has a plastics problem. Ottawa is a small part of it. We can do something about it. There's a federal consultation which has started. We can participate in that. We have a waste management report coming out in 2019. We can look at plastics and make sure that those are included as part of that report, and look at the best practices of what other municipalities are doing because we can learn something from them. It's not prejudging any outcome. It's not recommending in this motion that we ban any particular thing or that we force people to use reusable bags that they fail to wash and pick up mysterious diseases. It's not doing any of those things. It's actually pretty simple. We asked the staff investigate best practices and programs that have been adopted by other municipalities to reduce the use of single-use plastics and to report back to council on their findings as part of the broader waste diversion report coming to council in 2019. We could choose to ask them to do it or not to do it. It seems to me asking them to do it makes a lot more sense, and that's what this motion is calling on council to do. So although I recognize there are a lot of issues from incineration to many others that we will want to address at some point at the right time, I'm simply asking for support that we include a good hard look at single-use plastics in our waste report in 2019, and that we participate in federal consultations. So thank you. I urge you to support this.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So on the motion and report coming from Environment Committee with the amendment from Councillor Eglai, is this carried? Carried. And dissent by Councillor Harder? Yeah. Thank you. Dissent from Councillor Hubley as well? Okay. Thank you. The next item is item number 7, zoning amendment, live music and performance venues. This was held as well. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just have a few questions for staff. This is a report that overall, I certainly support. I think that it takes us in the direction as a city that we want to go in, where we're formalizing our music venues and ensuring that the zoning matches up to that. However, specific to my ward, last week I started to hear from residents who abut the Bronson Center, located on Bronson Avenue, and they're just behind. And with concerns about what this will mean for them in terms of their concerns around noise and loading and unloading, et cetera. And I just, I think that, I don't disagree with them. Anytime you've got noise complaints, you know that it takes a lot to actually make that complaint. And I've asked staff over the last 6 years, I think there were 21 complaints, but since 2014, that's dropped precipitously. Unfortunately, none of those complaints until late last week came to me, so I wasn't aware that there was a conflict between the residents and the center. But I do want to make sure that we're able to put in place restrictions on the noise. It's my job after today to work with those residents, to work with staff in the center to put measures in place to ensure that that the noise and other issues are mitigated. But I just wonder if I could hear from staff. What are the restrictions today on a music venue? What are they allowed to do? What's the decibel that they're allowed to have up until a certain hour? Could you just explain that?
So, Deputy Mayor, the current bylaw provides for complaint-driven intervention. So 55 decibels after 11 p.m. from point of reception is measured, and if it's above that, a bylaw intervention can be done. As well, with regards to music venues, the applicant can apply for noise exemptions through our normal process, which requires councillor sign-off. So from a representation of the community that's served there, the councillor has a capability to intervene as well too. And ultimately, we do have another tool. I mean, if things become problematic, and we talked about the Bronson Centre, and I know the councillor talked to city staff, and she's correct. In 2017, there were 3 complaints, and in 2016, 1. So there's been work that's being done with the centre, but we could license and have additional restrictions as well too. So there's another tool there. So there are tools at our disposal. We feel as a result of, as the councillor mentioned, from the last 6 years, quite a drop. It's because of some of that enforcement, but we can certainly look at individual areas. So those are the tools we currently have and that are at your disposal for problematic areas.
Thank you for that. I just want to, just on the license, the requirement for licensing for live music, is that something that we do on all occasions, or is that something that I could ask for if going forward?
Deputy Mayor, it's truly an exceptional tool. We don't normally use it because the other tools, generally resolve things and then discussions when we get complaints and we intervene, as well as the noise exemption where you have oversight to sign off or not if you want to give the noise exemption, if it's required by the venue. So it's something, that's an exceptional one, but we could look at that if you wish for a specific area if you're having issues.
Thank you. And could you just, for the record, tell us what 55 decibels, what is a similar sound? Is it a lawnmower, or is it a dishwasher? Am I putting you on the spot?
Deputy Mayor, you're putting me on the spot. I wouldn't want to introduce false information. I'm not quite aware. I don't think it's that loud actually, but I'm not sure. But I can get you that if it's important.
Thank you. So I just to say that I will be supporting the report today. I think it is an important step forward, but I will be working very closely with staff, and I've had conversations with staff, with the center, and residents to make sure that we put those measures in place. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fleury, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Député Maire. I just wanted to follow up. Mr. Willis, as you know, we're working closely in an area like the Byron Market to ensure that our zoning is upkept and that those who are not permitted to operate under the bar and nightclub definition but are allowed to operate a restaurant actually stick to the permitted use of a restaurant. I just want some reassurance that I'm supportive of the report, but I want to make sure, I'm not sure that I understand or that I see a difference between a music venue and a nightclub, and I just want to make sure that we're not allowing a loophole that would permit that expansion.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, acknowledge we're working with the councillor closely on the issues in the Byward Market, and those are in issues of restaurant versus nightclub in the zoning. This report does not change the zoning requirements for nightclubs. It is a supplemental zoning for other performance venues and other sorts of spaces, such as churches and other Legion halls, those sorts of things. I don't believe that the issues are connected.
And that's fine. Thank you for that. But how do we ensure that the music venue doesn't turn into a nightclub? Like, it's one thing to have a concert. I think it speaks to theater and other uses, which, 99% of time will not be a problem. But in the instance where, an operator gets access to some of those public spaces and starts operating it more as a nightclub venue, how do we, I guess my question is, what's the difference, and how would we regulate to ensure that we stay pure to the music venue and not be caught in this idea of falling into nightclub operations?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think it's still essentially a noise and property standards issue as it relates to the enforcement of this. It also, as we have in the other instances, looked at sort of the regulation of alcohol licensing in Ontario has a significant part of it. The zoning bylaw will have a distinct separation between the uses, and it's always a judgment of what the principal use of the facility is, and we believe that a performance venue and a nightclub is sufficiently distinct in the bylaw to allow enforcement.
And would you, in terms of the Alcohol and Gaming Corporation, these venues would not necessarily, maybe except for the Legions, but would not have a permanent liquor license? What are them? Are you seeing some mechanisms so that we can ensure temporary permit requirements and not permanent requirement or permanent requests?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if the principal purpose of the establishment is to serve alcohol and provides music as a means to attract patrons, it is a nightclub, it is not a performance venue. And that from our perspective, from the zoning, that would not be the same. Whereas a performance venue, its principal objective is to bring in patrons who pay or don't pay to attend a concert or musical or theater event. So I think the bylaw, to the extent that this issue can be addressed in zoning, which is limited because the bulk of the power rests with liquor licensing. But to the extent that it's in the zoning, we feel we have clear enough definitions to address this.
Okay. Would you be, I know that we're having two sets of conversations here, but in the context of the Byward Market, let's put that aside. In the context of ensuring that the AGCO is understanding of these zoning changes, could you write to the AGCO to signify the purpose of this zoning change and ask for, I guess, some clarity or some engagement if a venue does change its primary use and steps outside of the performance venue component?
Yes, we can, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on item number 7, zoning amendment, carried? Carried. Thank you. Disposition of items approved by committee under delegated authority, received? Received. Motion to adopt reports, Councillors Nussbaum and Deans, please.
That Community and Protective Services Committee Report 33, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 20, Planning Committee Report 63, Transit Commission Report 18 and 18A, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for items subject to the Planning Act explanation requirements at the City Council meeting of May 9th, 2018 be received and adopted as amended.
Thank you. Carried. Motions of which notice have been previously given. Councillor McKenney and Leaper, please.
Carried.
Thank you, Scott.
Come on, I might change it. It's a road closure. Whereas Apartment 613 is a not-for-profit organization, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, be it resolved that council approve the road closure for Cambridge Street North from Somerset Street West to the dead end, a point 30 meters south of Somerset West from 3 p.m. on Wednesday, June 13th to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, June 13th for Apartment 613 event, providing it meets the requirements, conditions, and approval of Special Events Advisory Team. C.
See, I wasn't paying attention, and that made you read the whole thing. Carried?
I didn't read it. I just closed. Oh, no. I just closed the road forever. Got
Just
you
for
all.
color. Okay. All right, Councillor Deans, please, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson.
We're just kidding. So my motion is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. It's on declaring June 2018 to be Seniors Month in the City of Ottawa. Do you want me to read the motion?
I do not.
Okay, I won't. Well, not just yet. I wanted to say a few words about it. It's not a secret that as age demographics in Canada shift, more and more of our population will be made up of seniors, including some of my colleagues, I think. Seniors are one of the fastest growing population groups in Canada. In fact, by 2036, seniors will represent 24.5% of the national population. That's 1 in 4 people. That shift in population will be highly visible for us at the municipal level. During my years as a councillor, I've made the needs of seniors one of my greatest priorities. For some, transitioning to an older adult lifestyle may mean financial instability, isolation, or mobility issues. That's why, as the co-chair of the Seniors Roundtable and chair of the Community and Protective Services Committee, I'm an advocate for seniors, not only in my community of Gloucester Southgate Ward, but for all seniors in Ottawa. And I must say that I'm really proud of the work the city is doing to address the needs of seniors through the Seniors Roundtable and our Aging in Place strategies. We're making changes to the accessibility of city buildings and to our road intersections. We're creating fitness programs geared towards seniors, and we're improving access to snow removal, to things like dental health for low-income residents. And those are just a few of the examples of the many things the city is doing to address the growing demographic of seniors in our community. I'd also like to acknowledge the many seniors who have been instrumental in building our city. Many seniors devote hours each week volunteering for our community through schools, community associations, events, and charities. Let's send a message to the seniors in Ottawa that they are important and valued. I'm happy to once again move this motion. I hope you will all join me in declaring June 2018 as Seniors Month in the City of Ottawa. Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is that carried? Carried. Thank you very much. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure? There are none. Notice is a motion for consideration at subsequent meetings. Councillor Chernyshenko, please, seconded by Councillor Caudry.
Yes, thank you very much. This actually just happens to relate to the past item in the sense that the city has little, if any, planning authority over over landfill sites within its municipality. As we have seen, we saw CARP in previous term. We've been seeing it in the East End now. This is a motion that a number of big cities and cities in Ontario have been bringing forward to the province to seek authority over planning of our landfill sites. This is just a notice of motion, obviously. We'll debate it later, but therefore be it resolved, the City of Ottawa calls upon the Government of Ontario, whoever that may be, when we pass this motion, and all political parties to formally grant municipalities the authority to approve landfill projects in or adjacent to their communities, and be it further resolved that the City of Ottawa send copies of this resolution to the next Minister of Environment and Climate Change for Ontario, to the next Premier of Ontario, to the AMO, and to the large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that notice. Next notice of motion is from Councillor Chiarelli, seconded by Councillor Cloutier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. Whereas City Council in 2005 adopted a residential protective plumbing program for sewer backup modeled on the program in place from the former City of Ottawa since the early 1980s for the amalgamated City of Ottawa. And whereas the program is intended to provide residents with some financial assistance in terms of protection of individual properties through reimbursement of a portion of the costs of installation of protective plumbing to reduce the risk of basement and cellar flooding resulting from city sewer backup, and whereas the program currently requires homeowners to submit their application prior to having the protective plumbing device installed as set out in Section 3 of Bylaw 2016-376, and whereas numerous homes were affected by flooding as a result of the extraordinary rainfall that took place between October 29th and the 30th of 2017, and whereas several of the affected homeowners have advised that they were directed by their insurance to have protective plumbing devices installed as soon as possible or risk cancellation of insurance against flooding, with the result that these homeowners were unable to first submit an application for partial reimbursement of costs under the program pursuant to the bylaw. Therefore, be it resolved that City Council waive the requirement of Section 3 of Bylaw 2016-376 that the owner of an eligible property as described in Section 2 must apply to and receive approval from the city prior to the start date of the work, including but not limited to any demolition or construction work associated with the installation of the protective plumbing devices in respect of homeowners whose property was flooded on October 29th to the 30th, 2017, and who proceeded with the installation of protective plumbing devices without prior approval rather than risk cancellation of their insurance.
Thank you very much for that, and that's a notice of motion for next meeting. Notice of intent from the Ottawa Community Housing Corporation to hold the annual general meeting of the shareholder at council meeting scheduled for June 13th, 2018. Before the next and almost final item of business, I do want to point out that it's been pointed out to me that former Councillor Hunter has joined us as well today. He's got a bit of a following over there. I think he's signing autographs. Thank you very much for joining us, Councillor Hunter. Motion to introduce bylaws, please. Councillor Nussbaum and Deans.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings, be read and passed.
Thank you very much. Confirmation bylaw, Councillor Nussbaum, please. Seconded by Councillor Deans.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of May 23rd, 2018.
Thank you very much. Carried. Inquiries. I have no written inquiries. And adjournment. Councillor Nussbaum and Deans, please.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of May 23rd, 2018 be adjourned.
Carried.
Carried.